Out to the top of the hour of 8 o'clock. I'm glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. That traffic report coming through from our very own Stephen Mbide. We'll be listening to some other aspects on ground as Stephen Mbide brings them to us a little bit later. But now let's get underway with the Kickstarter discussion, and we will be analyzing the new A-level curriculum, the one that those who are heading into Senior 5 on account of the just concluded selection process is concerned. What's in it? What is out? Before I introduce my guests, just a few aspects on the key changes in the curriculum. Officials say the revised syllabi have changed the method of instruction from knowledge and objective-based approach to what is being described as an integrated and learner-centered competence-based approach. Some content across all the 29 subjects have been rationalized, integrated and merged into with overlaps and similar skills, dropping topics that have been studied at lower secondary or no longer critical and relevant for the current learning needs. Those that were of low competence have been upgraded to match the advanced level, and in a statement that has been released or part of the documents that have been sent to schools in part reads, the results from the curriculum analysis revealed that there were overlaps of concepts that were covered at the lower secondary as well as concepts within different topics of the same subject. In addition, the document says a number of syllabi have had content that is no longer necessary for today's contemporary society as well as the 21st century. Now, those are really very poignant words when you have to look at what is applicable in the 21st century vis-a-vis what has been studied all along. Maybe it is about time that this particular new curriculum is embraced. I have with me in the studio Mr. Hasadu Chirabira, is the chairperson of the National Private Education Institutions Association and peer, as well as Mr. Gilbert Sima, the manager for secondary education at the National Curriculum Development Center. Gentlemen, welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you, and good morning.
We'll be talking the curriculum very shortly, but before we delve into that, allow me usher us into the story that was aired yesterday, that is on the news on the Ministry of Education taking us through the new A-level curriculum, upon which we shall base our conversation this morning.
About 4 years ago, the government unveiled the lower secondary school curriculum, and the results for the first cohort of candidates under this new system were released this month. There have been questions about how these students would transition to the traditional A-level curriculum or whether they would continue with the old syllabus. However, the government confirmed that the new A-level curriculum will be fully ready for implementation by March 3rd when Senior 5s return to school for their first term. In the revised A-level curriculum, there is a shift from a knowledge-based system to a competence-based one. This means students will no longer simply memorize facts, but will instead develop problem-solving, analytical, and practical skills across subjects. Topics deemed outdated or already covered at the lower secondary level have been removed or merged to ensure that only relevant and necessary content is taught. According to the National Curriculum Development Center, the revised A-level curriculum will see learners do a single school-based summative assessment at the end of the year. Regular termly examinations are no longer required. Instead, assessment will focus on continuous teacher evaluations during activities of integration. Comprehensive guidelines for end-of-cycle assessment will be outlined in the assessment manual. But also, values and attitude will be assessed, noting that assessing values and attitude is more challenging than evaluating knowledge and skills. Values such as integrity, hard work, and patriotism will be assessed over time through observations and interactions rather than through formal exams. the integration of ICT will be a key aspect of the curriculum. The curriculum is designed to be inclusive, catering to students with special educational needs and ensuring that all learners have equal access to education opportunities. The curriculum also embeds topics such as environmental awareness, health, citizenship, and socio-economic challenges. National values, including integrity, hard work, and patriotism, are embedded in teaching practices rather than assessed directly. Suggested teaching approaches include inquiry-based learning. This includes encouraging students to investigate, explore research topics based on their interests and solve problems through critical thinking. Others include problem-based and project-based learning. Learners find solutions to problems through their experience in research and projects. This leads to development of critical thinking, social and research skills. Also, case-based learning. Learners refer to real-world scenarios to discuss and analyze them. Norbert Atkunda, NTV News.
Thank you very much, Norbert Atkunda, for that reporter's aired on NTV tonight, last evening, and ushering us into our discussion this morning, where we are analyzing the new A-level curriculum, one that is part of significant reforms that have been rolled out by the Ministry for Education, of course, that works under the aegis of the government in improving and making sure the education system is up to par with the demands and expectations in the 21st century. Like I said earlier, we have with us in the studio officials who are going to help us with a much needed perspective for our understanding of how exactly this is going to roll out, but most importantly, what it is. Allow me to begin with Mr. Gilbert Sima, the Manager for Secondary Education at the National Curriculum Development Center. We've heard in the story that has just aired about how this is to ensure the seamless transfer that is happening, because the very first cohort that has come from lower into upper secondary must be able not to repeat some of the aspects that they studied at lower secondary level. Bring us up to speed with what we could have missed or plainly not understood perfectly, especially within the story.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. The story had a number of facts right.
Okay. As we strive to do.
What maybe you could have missed, if I am to bring the viewer up to speed.
Up to speed, yeah.
Is that the review of the lower secondary curriculum was a big change in terms of how teaching is being done.
That's right.
How learning, or how to tell that learning has taken place. That is in terms of assessment. It even had issues to do with continuous assessment. And when you look at all that and you come up to the end of senior 4, it means that the way this learner has been learning has been different. If you want to know that learning has taken place, you will give them an assessment that puts them in a given situation, what we are calling scenarios. And because of that, you are able to identify what the learner is able to do and is able to contribute to society as a result of having attended school from senior 1 to senior 4. I am using those words to simplify a technical word that we are referring to as competency-based learning. So after all that, it is important that you are providing continuity for this learner at the next level. But also taking care of those who have not been part of the competency system to join. So what happened is the original curriculum that emphasized on what the learner is able to or what the learner knows is able to recall
and memorize,
is able to reproduce, is being put into a context such that this learner is able to apply the knowledge, the skills acquired as a result of going to school in a variety of situations, which are real life situations for purposes of adding value to society. So basically that is all that we have been addressing, and making sure that this applies not only to lower secondary, but there is a provision for continuity at the next level.
All right, thank you very much for that. Allow me to stay with you on the fact that there are concerns, especially by some schools, that the rolling, or rather being able to provide the topics of study across all the 29 subjects offered at this level had not taken place. Yet 3 days from now, the students will be beginning. That has been a bit of a concern from the schools. Where are we on that?
The 29 subjects have been in existence before. But you know that the way you learn, the way content is presented to you is also of utmost importance. Someone can give you directions to NTV by giving you a map and showing you on the map that this is where you are, this is where you're going, so take this, when you reach here, turn like this, you'll get there. Another one will stand and give you, oh, now you are here, move, turn left, turn right, and you'll get there.
That is right.
Who of the two is likely to get lost? The one who is, if I were the one, I would get lost if you just talked to me and you have not given me something to work with.
That is right.
Now, that is the methodology, the way teaching and learning happens in our different schools. What I'm saying is the change, the content has been there. But what we have done is to make sure that the way it is presented to the learner
is different.
Such that these learners are able to apply it. And also, like you have aired in that news item, we need to get out that which is no longer useful to us. I'm sure some people were very, very happy when they learned that some topics were out, because they used to ask, so what are these helping us to? But some that they were commenting on, it was an issue of how they are presented. But they are still relevant. Okay. So you address those gaps. Curriculum development is continuous. It doesn't end. So you realize that we have not introduced new content, but we have adjusted on how this content is presented to the learner for purposes of increased efficiency. And some has been dropped, like you said. That which we considered obsolete, the overloads have been removed such that it is containable within the 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, interesting there. Mr. Hassadu Chirabida, in your position as the chairperson of the private institutions, I know there have been concerns at the speed with which the condensed curriculum has been offered or rolled out to you, the stakeholders. Some apparently don't have portals onto which this should be uploaded, and that also presents a whole new challenge. You'll be talking to us about that, but what's your take on the curriculum in its entirety?
Thank you very much. I think from the onset, we have seen a new idea as stakeholders, and we have welcomed the initiative, because it is putting us to the reality, the practical aspect of the product of our education system. The challenge we have had is a system of having all that has been set in place. According to our observation, we have a very big challenge in the sector, especially of government not prioritizing the sector. That's why you see NCDC has packaged itself on time. It is ready to do ABCD, but I think they don't have resources to do the implementation as it is required. When we talk of the O-level curriculum, there should be lessons in the process of how it has been implemented. These lessons would enable us benchmark on how best we would approach the same in the A-level. These lessons have not been learned, they have not been shared, and appraisal has not been done to enable us to rectify. We seemed to be going through the same challenges we went through in the O-level curriculum implementation, which was very tedious and challenging to we, the stakeholders in the implementation stage. With the coming of the new, which is competence-based, in spite of the fact that delays have been there, we would wish to know early that, okay, the CBS is not going to take place in the A-level, so that we plan and we are guided as NCDC is guiding now for better preparation, because the cycle, the processes of preparing what is going to be taught in schools on the side of the teachers and learners is a bit longer than the time they give us to organize and prepare ourselves.
That is right.
We see a challenge of coming up with a new curriculum in O-level, no new system aligned to the new one in O-level in the primary. We come with a new one in O-level, which we are all embracing and we think is fitting for our country. And then we don't see a new system taking shape in A-level. And we are working under a situation where we are coming up with a abridged, which is not our wish. We don't see how this process is initiating us into what Uganda desires for effective delivery of educational objectives as of now. So we are seeing a challenge from the competence-based. My brother is talking about phasing away the knowledge-based, but according to our analysis, actually, in A-level, we are almost in the knowledge-based. As he has said, nothing much, apart from the bridging
nothing
of the
changes.
Nothing much. Okay, it is almost business as usual. Okay, but the advantage here is the conceptualization of concepts, the content. Avoid overlaps, bring the irrelevant ones and all that. That was so important to us. Reputations. That is so important. The bringing in of the assessment module of the O-level into A-level, which we look at as knowledge-based, seems to be boring a leaf from the new system, which does not connect with the old system we are going to implement in A-level. The activities of integration, the project work, and all that. Of course, now we take it to be a kind of a topical summary of what has been covered. So, in that perspective, the two are not connecting to enable us get to the direction the country wants to take us, which we think is ideal. There's still a challenge there, but what brings this challenge? Prioritization of education. There is no funding to allow NCDC do its activity in a timely manner and allow it to complete what it has prepared. That is the biggest challenge. Now I would call it fumbling with the old in disguise of abridging it. So we are continuing in the old in spite of the light that has been shedded as far as the old system of the new curriculum is concerned. Okay. We are also talking about the timely communication awareness. This is a very big problem in everything we are doing in education. We don't know what is happening. There is no communication. It is my first time now to interface with someone from NCDC. We rarely see NCDC. We rarely see UNEB to come and harmonize in a timely manner. when are they reaching out? Because we are talking about portals and all this information is flowing through waves. There is no direct communication, there is no direct contact of the initiators or the would-be architectures of what we are implementing, but we are zooming. This is so dangerous to the people who are going to implement. We are talking about Kampala and urban areas. What about the countryside, where people are not aware, they are not on the networks we are talking about? So I think we have a new thing that has not been nurtured well by the authorities. They know well why, but we think we are in a new thing. We don't see any piloting. Okay, maybe even if it is not overhauled to enable some aspects like a piloting, but we need some workshop to allay away the fears people have. There's a lot of communication down there when you move around. So we shall end up messing up, handling this against this. Where are these syllabuses? Where are these subjects?
Okay, I think Mr. Sima, there is what appears to be acceptance of the fact that this is a good initiative to be able to condense the various aspects of the syllabi that are in the curriculum as it is rolled out. But the concern, as Mr. Chirabira seems to point out, is that you are assuming as NCDC that this is straightforward. And rolling it out would be as simple as, okay, we have removed this aspect in a syllabus. Please ensure you do not attend to it or drop it as we have done, and simply pay attention to the abridged aspects or those that have been merged to lead to the overall condensed curriculum that has been offered. We'll be talking a little bit later about the assessment, how the assessment is going to be done, because I know it's now going to be the UNEB that does all the assessment, unlike in O-level where 20% is for what happens in continuous assessment at schools. But please allay some of the fears that have been expressed by Mr. Chirabira.
Thank you very much. Indeed, he has very many fears, but also it's also not good to comment on some things the way they are being commented on, especially when there is no clear proof.
Okay.
For example, if you say, I think they don't have resources, that statement is big. I think they don't have resources. We have done a lot of appraisal of, definitely we've been following up the implementation of the lower secondary. And as we follow up, there are lessons we are learning from the implementers. And based on those resources, based on those lessons, we go back and see how to accommodate. For us, learning does not stop. So let me address myself to some of the concerns that he has raised.
Before you address those other concerns, allow me just seek clarity on the aspect of resource constraints. When he says resource constraints, I think he's referring to the fact, for example, that 3 days to the start of the new term for the senior fives, this is being rolled out now. And if Mr. Dr. Grace Baguma's words are anything to take, he says all syllabi have been approved by the Ministry of Education, and we are working tirelessly to ensure that these subjects are uploaded before the day ends. What does this mean?
It means...
all these...
It means...
in the run-up to the opening?
I was saying, let me say, and I quote, I think they do not have resources is different from resources were delayed. Those two are different. So when the resources come, at the time they come, we work as a government entity. We go through a budgeting process. When resources come is when we use them. And we made every effort to make sure that from the time the resources were received, we had to do something for the children of Uganda and make sure that it is delivered before these students report for Senior 5. Secondly, we are making every effort to make sure that every stakeholder involved in the implementation is brought on board. As a matter of fact, I can confidently state that this week we are going to start explaining the changes to teachers using our online platforms. He's talking about some
there are schools that
don't have portals and so on. Some of this information, we are working closely with the ASHU leadership. ASHU brings together all head teachers across the country.
What's that in full?
Association of secondary school head teachers in Uganda. I hope it's something like that. So when we get to them, we have communicated to them. It's unfortunate that my brother has had it right now, but at least the head teachers were informed much earlier than now that this program was coming. They were even informed on the expected changes in this program. So it's okay for him to get to know it now, and we are making every effort possible to make sure that as many people get to know. This is testament to us that some of our colleagues have not yet heard about it.
That is right.
So we are going to make sure that we have that gap closed. As we continue. So
let's stay on that for now, a little bit more in detail. When you say that gap is going to be closed, I've seen what has been described as face-to-face in engagement. For those that will not be receiving this by way of internet or technology, that requires rolling out officials and trainers to the schools across the country. Are we on top of that?
Yes, we are going to have two approaches to this training. The first approach is online information dissemination.
That's right.
This online, there is information that can be disseminated using online platforms. But there is the other element, skill development, either among the teachers and demonstration of how it should be done, which cannot be done through online platforms. So we are starting with informing the stakeholders and guiding them on the changes using the online platforms as early as this week. And thereafter, that is going to be followed by rolling out trainers to all parts of the country to go and support the teachers in every school to implement this. How this is going to be done is we normally work with a pool of master trainers, quite a number of them, and you roll them out to district level, and they go and train. You get 5-10 schools in a district, they get together. As these are being trained here, another group is being trained in another place, and so on and so forth. So we are very optimistic that we are going to cover the country in the shortest time possible, despite the delays.
Again, and
before we go to again,
and my apologies for the interjection.
Yes.
Morning at NTV is a talk show, and we need these questions answered as effectively as they ought to be answered. How does rollout of trainings work with teaching at the same time? You are training people on how they are going to instruct or carry out the curriculum implementation, yet learning is ongoing. These are two things happening concurrently, and I do not know exactly how you intend to achieve the best possible results.
We intend to achieve the best possible results because we are dealing with the people who have already undergone pre-service teacher training.
Pre-service teacher training.
And when you are taken through pre-service teacher training, you are exposed to almost all these approaches that we are talking about. So it's not that the teachers are seeing them for the very first time in their lives, but for every rollout of a new curriculum, it is important that you guide them.
That's right.
You guide them, maybe if the method has not been in use for some time, it becomes a moment to just reactivate that. So it's not that they are seeing these approaches for the very, very first time. At least we expect that every school has a trained teacher somewhere.
Okay.
There are some questions that are not yet answered. I request to answer
you can now go on to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
One, the primary curriculum was the first to be
rolled out,
reviewed. But some people have never acknowledged that actually it was reviewed. It was rolled out primary 1 in 2007. The first cohort, I think, sat in 2012.
Under the age
and
UPE?
It was competency based. That is a fact on ground. Just that there is always a tendency of people wanting to take us back to the old. But the primary curriculum was the first to be reviewed, to be made competence-based, followed by the lower secondary curriculum. Now followed by Alevel.
The one that has just
been produced for us. Now, the one that has just been produced for us, there is another statement: nothing much has changed. I would say something big has changed. Why? If you have been requiring a learner to write an essay about Mussolini, that was the expected, what we're calling objective. But now we are changing the language and also the presentation from objective to learning outcome. After you have learned, what will show that you have learned? And we are saying that you should be able maybe to explain to us the lessons we learn from Mussolini. It's no longer about reproducing what the teacher gave you. It is an issue of applying what you have learned in your situation, whether that situation is Uganda, is Kampala, is Karamoja. How does Mussolini, the way he governed whatever he did, how does it inform the changes that are happening now? I think that is a big change. So you might be looking at the topic as Second World War, but take time and look at the learning outcomes. The textbook will remain the same, okay? Because the information is the same. But how we are treating this information, what you are doing with it, is totally different. So you are required to make use of this information and apply whatever you have learned from it in a variety of situations. That said, it is the competency requires you to make use of that information in a variety of situations. Therefore, if you produce a student who is able to reproduce the essay, that student is not able to apply whatever they learned about that topic in a variety of situations. Therefore, you will have disadvantaged that student as far as this change is concerned. To me, I think that is a very big change that our stakeholders, our implementers need to take into account and attend to.
Interesting. When you have to entirely depend on how any one student visualizes, understands, but at the end of it all visualizes what he has understood. And when you give the example of Mussolini, I was trying to figure it out, what kind of examination process, the marking process going on. You're being asked the factors that led to the rise of fascism in Italy and why Mussolini came in at the time and was more like the perfect vehicle to entrench that, because he wanted a bigger empire that would continue as a Roman Empire. Two students can understand that differently.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and when they relate to what is happening today in any one part of the world, where maybe fascism ideas can no longer work, those two students will be right. One who stays with what reigned at the time that informed Mussolini's rise, and the fact that it doesn't apply today, they are both correct.
They are both very correct, because we are moving away from the examination of one size fits all. Because the way it applies, for example, if you're asked to set up a studio at NTV, this studio.
That's right.
But I have also been at NTV in another studio downstairs. The space is not the same.
That's right.
That's right. So does it mean that the design that I have here is the design I must put downstairs?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So then, if we are training our learners to come and solve the societal problems in Uganda, why should we subject them to all of them producing exactly the same thing? That's the challenge we are trying to address. Because the challenge, the person who is attending to an issue in Karamoja, using the same knowledge, needs to apply it or to act on it differently from a person who is addressing the same challenge in Arua, addressing the same challenge in Kisoro. So we need these learners to be able to draw onto the knowledge that they have acquired through education to address, to be relevant in our society or where they are placed, such that we run away from a
thank you for staying with us. I'm glad for the faith, and it's the Kickstarter discussion. We are analyzing the new Alevel curriculum. In the studio, I have with me Gilbert Sima, the Manager Secondary Education at the National Curriculum Development Center. I also have with me Hasadu Chirabira, the Chairperson of the National Private Education Institutions Association and peer. Mr. Hasadu Chirabira, you were submitting on an aspect that is very close to your heart. Before we went into the break, I'll allow you finish the submission, and then we shall roll into the very last set of questions as we enter the final bend.
Yeah, I think there is, thank you, there is an issue of, my brother is talking about of primary, already rolled on. But I think any CDC should change its approach, should spare time to get on ground and see how things are being done and how things are being implemented.
Okay.
In my analysis and my team and then a pair secretariat, we see NCDC is more on ground in the secondary than in the primary. Many of the people in the primary have not well articulated the curriculum we are talking about. Even some generations, they don't know that it is even changed. This is some time back. I was in the system. I've never done any other job apart from being a teacher and a proprietor. But in that new arrangement, I think some aspects of that new curriculum in the primary cease even to exist in actual practice. There was an introduction of the CAPE systems, the art, the MDD, the Swahili. These things no longer exist. People are doing things their own way and almost the old way, and we don't see a follow-up on what is being done. If really we are to walk the talk, there must be a systematic approach on following what has been brought by NCDC and the new versions even with UNEB. Otherwise, when we introduce things and we leave them hanging, this causes poor performance. In primary, how do people interpret the curriculum? How do they understand? When do we review to make sure there are CPDs for these people in primary to connect with what is needed at a time? So I think some aspects have not been addressed. Even they have ceased to exist in schools. The new products seem not to be much more focused on some aspects like Swahili. By the time we started, even we didn't have teachers of Swahili.
Yet the program was rolling out.
The program was rolling. We have issues. By the time we started, for example, the O-level, we didn't have people qualified in physical education. But already the program is rolled out. So we must systematically have a connection with the teachers' institutes to make sure they prepare for us the right labor force we need in order to implement some of the changes.
And the challenges of the 21st century.
Exactly.
Okay, let's allow Mr. Gilbert Sima to respond to that, but also give us some, offer us some clarity on the projects that are going to be introduced, and I'll read what has been provided in the document that was shared. Projects and project-based learning has been introduced in the revised curriculum to promote active and experiential learning, as well as enhance creativity and innovation among the learners. They will be encouraged to select projects that are relevant, engaging, and are aligned with the different topics in the syllabi. But the guidelines for those project assessments are not out. We want the assessment guidelines, yet at the end of the day, the final exam that shall count won't include these projects. How is that supposed to happen?
Okay, thank you very much. I have a number of questions to attend to here quickly.
Please do.
One,
under 4.
The projects are put in place to develop the skills. To develop the skills among the learners, to develop the aspects of the 21st century skills of communication, collaboration, and others. Okay. And those skills of communication and collaboration, you need them in order to do the other mainstream subject. So if you do not have the projects in place to develop these skills, it is going to affect even the mainstream. Yes, the one that is going to be assessed at the end of cycle. So it is important that they are there. And then as pertains the guidelines, we are working on the guidelines right now with UNEP.
Will those guidelines be ready in 3 days?
No, they might not be ready in 3 days, but they will be ready before these students start working on projects.
Okay.
Then number 2, education sector is a system, and NCDC does not work on everything. So from what my brother was submitting, I hear some action points for the Directorate of Education Standards. I hear some action points for the inspectors of schools. And for us as a system, we are lifelong learners. So that feedback, continuous feedback from stakeholders helps us improve on what is coming on next. Unfortunately, there are some cases where some parts of the system are affected. For example, what he was talking about of the CAPEs and so on, a number of people did not understand why they were put in place. I'm talking about the primary curriculum.
Yes.
And because of not understanding why they were put in place, the stakeholders, who include parents, push education institutions to go for marks. And because they go for marks, we forfeit learning at the expense of marks. It's high time, if I were to give the general remark about our education system, by the way, it is good, but it's high time we dropped the idea of the craze for marks and we crave for learning.
We crave for passing.
No, we don't need. You can pass when you have actually not learned.
That is right.
And that's what we see. That aspect is affecting us greatly. So if we need to tone down on the desire for passing and aim for making sure that learning takes place.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert Sima, Manager Secondary Education at the National Curriculum Development Center. Many thanks to you too, Hasadu Chirabira, Chairperson of the National Private Education Institutions Association, for the perspective and helping us understand better what the new A-level curriculum is all about. I'm told